and the bride who paid me to cut the kiss. I shoot weddings for people who want proof their happiness looked good in slow motion. It's a job made of light and lying, and I'm good at both. My name is Cole. I've filmed vows on rooftops and dances in barns, fathers who practice their speeches and mothers who practice not crying. I've never believed in forever, but I know how to make an afternoon pretend. Jade found me 3 weeks before her ceremony, which is the kind of timeline panic money tries to fix. She arrived at my studio in a white blazer that didn't apologize for anything, holding a coffee she never drank. Her engagement ring was a disciplined moon on her finger. She set a leather folio on my desk and looked at me like I was a lock she could pick. Adrian's people think we should use someone aligned with the brand, she said, the way you quote a diet you don't intend to follow. I'd rather trust a freelancer who knows where the camera wants to be. What does the camera want? I asked. To be told the truth just once, she said. Can you do that and make it beautiful? I told her I could. I tell everyone that. She smiled in a way that made the studio feel noticed. One more thing, she said, tapping the folio. No drones. He likes to be above everything. I prefer ground. Adrian Voss was not a man who did ground. He had launched a platform that turned human attention into quarterly reports, and lately he'd been testifying about how much he loved guardrails. He was the kind of rich that made waiters stand straighter. I had filmed worse men with less light. The rehearsal dinner was at a hotel whose lobby smelled like fig and old secrets. Jade moved through guests the way a violin moves through a room. The sound found you and changed your posture. Adrian looked formidable in navy, and a smile he might have practiced. The best man, Theo, was handsome in a way that didn't ask for consent. He and Adrian laughed too much near the bar, and the wedding planner made notes with the polite ferocity of a storm warning. I kept my hands on my rig and my eyes where my lens was. When Jade caught me watching, she came to me with a practiced ease. "Find me tomorrow before the ceremony," she said softly. "There's a shot I need." "What kind of shot?" I asked. "The kind you take in a hurry," she said. "You'll know." She left me with a whiff of orange peel and something like decision. The day of, the hotel suite behaved like a set. Florals, silk, a flurry of hairpins like small metal comets. I was early enough to pretend I belonged. Jade stood by the window with her veil like a fog bank in her hands. Her maid of honor was telling a story too loudly about a college almost scandal. The makeup artist edited cheekbones into arguments. Jade asked everyone for 5 minutes and they obeyed. When the door clicked, she turned to me. "I need you to do something for me," she said. It wasn't a plea. It was logistics wrapped in velvet. She lifted her hair, revealing the tiny transmitter of her lav mic clipped at the back of her dress. "Leave this on when we step away for portraits with Theo. There's a conversation Adrian thinks will be off all microphones. It won't be." "I'm not your private investigator," I said. "You're a man who knows where the camera wants to be," she said. "And you're good at making lies look like hope. Make me something I can live with." "What are you asking me to find?" "The truth he gives other men," she said, "and pretends to give me." The portraits happened on an ivy terrace nobody else had booked yet, the kind of space you rent when you want your life to look stolen. Theo arrived with the rings like a magician who might make the bride disappear. He kissed Jade's cheek gently enough to be deniable and turned to me with professional charm. "Cole, right," he said. "Let's do the ones that make sponsors happy." We did the sponsor shots. We did the ones that made the florist weep. We did the half laugh that sits best on invitations. Then Theo suggested Jade practice the walk down the aisle, and I suggested a cutaway for a save-the-date montage, and we strolled further down the terrace, out of sight of anyone polite. I pretended to adjust a lens. The lav mic stayed live. My monitor showed sound like a heartbeat. "You're sure?" Theo asked, too soft. "This is your last exit." "This is my first entrance," she said. "Tell him he can have his variants if he stops feeding my mother to the press." "Your mother started it," Theo said. "My mother started wanting better furniture," she said. "He started the narrative. There's a difference." Theo exhaled. "He won't like being handled." "He doesn't have to like it," she said. "He just has to understand there are other microphones in this world." "Like ours," he said, eyes flicking precisely where my rig was pointed away. Jade didn't turn. "The only thing on is my heartbeat." They kissed then, not carelessly and not quite chastely. It was the kind of kiss that knows it is borrowing a room. I filmed a plant. I filmed the way light made lace into maps. I filmed nothing professionally. The ceremony was beautiful in the way money knows how to be beautiful. Candles that thought they were stars, strings that learned a pop song on command. Adrian cried when he saw her, which counts as sincerity even if you can afford it. The vows were brief, the applause warm, the kiss choreographed for a camera with good instincts. I captured angles that made forever feel like a technical setting. At the reception, speeches bloomed into jokes, which bloomed into confessions dressed as jokes. Theo's toast was too polished for a best man, but he was practiced at being important near important men. When the cake arrived, the band let its singer break into something that made elderly people nod and young ones feel seen. I caught Jade laughing at nothing, a sound I would play back to myself later to remember what people want from days like this. After the last dance, there is always a moment weddings try to pretend doesn't happen. The exhale, the limp, the sense that the performance went off without a visible tear. I gathered mics and batteries in a small room the hotel called a library because it had books. Jade slipped in, closing the door with a soft click like a promise. Her lipstick had gone faint and her eyes had not. "Come to my room," she said. "Bring everything." It is unwise to obey sentences like that, so of course I did. Her suite had learned to be lonely fast. She kicked off her shoes and stood by the window where the city pretended to sleep. She unpinned her hair and the room realized it had been waiting. "Play it," she said. I cued the terrace audio. We listened to her own voice, her own cunning, the way Theo's protest slid under it like a soft rug. We listened to her kiss someone she was not supposed to, and we listened to her not apologize to herself for it. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "Cut the kiss," she said. "And the conversation?" I asked. "It implicates him, not you." "It implicates me too," she said. "Just because I'm right doesn't make me innocent. Make the ceremony clean. Make the reception joyful. Leave the rest for life." "That's not the truth," I said. "It's a truth," she said. "It's the truest one we can afford without breaking bones." "And the other truth?" I asked. She stepped closer. Her fingers brushed my wrist where my pulse keeps its own counsel. "You'll send it to someone who won't trade it," she said. "Not the tabloids, not the investors. Someone who remembers what zoning was for besides money." "Councilwoman Ibarra," I said. "She did RSVP," Jade said, smiling with her eyes. "But she cares." "You want me to be your courier," I said. "I want you to do what you were hired for," she said. "Make a record of what actually happened, and then make a movie of what it should mean." "You're using me," I said. "I'm trusting you," she said, "with both versions." We stood uselessly close in a room later called a scandal by no one. She reached past me to the desk, her shoulder warm against my chest, her breath briefly in my throat, and slid a check across the polished wood. It was indecent. It was also exactly what the edit cost with hazard pay for conscience. I didn't look at the amount. I looked at her mouth, which was asking for something it had the strength not to ask for aloud. "We shouldn't," I said. "We won't," she said, and then we didn't mostly. We kept it to unhurried nearness and a kiss that lived on my jaw instead of my lips, a mouth at my throat instead of my spine, hands on fabric that remembered how to be kind. Heat can be tender. Tender can be dangerous. We were both fluent and restrained. When I left, Dawn was busy inventing silver. In my studio, I transferred everything twice and hid the terrace audio in a folder called Ambient. The public cut was a masterpiece of honesty's nicer cousin. Adrian looked brave. Jade looked luminous. Their parents looked younger for a day. The kiss at the altar was the one the world needed to see. The balcony kiss survived only as a ghost you could hear if you knew exactly when to listen and had a talent for denial. I sent the councilwoman a link with no subject line and a note that said, "This is about a variance, not a marriage. Use it to protect the river, not to drown a woman." She replied 2 days later with a single sunflower emoji and nothing else. That was either gratitude or receipt. Both were enough. The first call I got wasn't from Adrian. It was from someone with a voice trained to be reasonable in court. "Mr. Hale," he said, and made my last name sound like a crime. "We're conducting a routine verification of consent for audiovisual material." "Everything was signed," I said, "twice." "There was an additional recording on a terrace," he said gently. "We'd like to ensure that doesn't make it into any cut." "It won't," I said. "Excellent," he said. "And your raw audio?" "Archived," I said. "Accessible?" he asked. "Only to the story it tells," I said, which is a sentence ridiculous enough to win awards and end careers. He said something lawyerly and hung up. I tried to make my coffee taste like victory. It tasted like coffee. Adrian never called me. He posted a carousel that made their wedding look like a patent. The captions were a teamwork of consultants. Jade posted one photo only, her hand on a windowsill, ring glinting, city blurred, captioned simply "mine." The comments were a festival of admiration and envy. Theo posted nothing. Theo understood how silence works. Weeks later, I saw a headline about a stalled vote. The variance would be reconsidered after an ethics review. Nobody said why. A small, well-edited video of Adrian talking about public trust began circulating among people who like their outrage mild. It wasn't my clip. It was something newer, something shot on a phone at a fundraiser where everyone thought the microphones had been turned off. Ibarra knew where to aim. Jade texted me, finally, from a number saved only as J. The message was a single line. "Cut looks like a memory I can keep." I wrote back a sunflower. It mattered more than it should have. We didn't see each other for months. Weddings fill calendars for men like me, and being married filled hers with events that needed her face and not her voice. Then one evening in late autumn, when the city was practicing its fog, I filmed a rooftop vow renewal for two men who had waited 20 years to risk paperwork. The planner was running behind. A woman in a white blazer handed me tape without being asked. I looked up. Jade. She was different in the ways that matter and the ways that don't. The ring was gone. The moon had resigned. She looked rested and dangerous and relieved. "You look like you started sleeping," I said. "I started telling the truth to people who wanted it," she said. "It's exhausting, and also it is." We stayed on the far side of polite, professionalism worn like Kevlar. When the couple kissed and the crowd did that thing where everyone becomes a choir, She leaned in close enough to borrow my heat without debt. "Do you ever miss the cut we didn't make?" she asked. "Every time I export," I said, "and I sleep anyway." She laughed softly. "He won't forgive me," she said. "He'll forgive himself. That's the gift power gives itself." "What about Theo?" I asked, because curiosity is a religion and I'm a believer. "Theo forgives the mirror," she said. "He and Adrian are made of the same ambition, just different fonts." The wind tried to rearrange her hair. I didn't help. She pressed her knuckles to my shoulder, a gentle, deliberate punctuation. "Thank you for making me beautiful without lying," she said. "You were terrifying," I said. "Same thing," she said, and left with a promise not to promise anything. Sometimes I rewatch their ceremony, the clean version we sold to the memory of whoever needs it. There's a frame where the camera catches Jade looking past Adrian at something only she can see. In another cut, I know what it is. Ivy, a corridor, a man practicing regret. In ours, it's just light. If you need me to call myself a hero, I can't. I was a contractor with a conscience and a bill that cleared. If you need a villain, Adrian is easy and lazy. He is a person performing a script he wrote for himself, and there are plenty of those. If you need a moral, it's something like this. The truth has cousins, and sometimes you introduce the one who won't get your friends arrested and the one who might save your river, and you teach them both to behave at the same table. I still shoot weddings. I still make afternoons pretend. But I've started asking every couple for a minute alone on a terrace. I don't record it. I just let them breathe where the microphones aren't, and I tell them to say something they'll never say again, just to each other. Some of them hold hands and laugh and ask me to leave. Some of them cry once efficiently. Some of them kiss like they want to borrow a room and never pay it back. All of them are beautiful. None of them are lies. And when the city asks what I do, I say I make people look the way they hoped they were for a day. If I'm in the mood to be honest, I add that sometimes I help them decide which version of that day deserves to be true. Then I go back to my studio, and the sun drops into the river like a coin, and in the glass of my window I see a white blazer behind me, and I don't turn around, and I still feel my pulse answer to a voice that said, "Make me something I can live with," and I do.